We are joined now by Patrick Raglow. He's the Executive Director of Catholic Charities in the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, and he has spent more than a decade working within the refugee resettlement program and has helped more than 3,000 refugees from all over the globe start a new life in the United States. Patrick, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure, Colin. Thank you.
Can I begin by asking you to just explain how this refugee resettlement program actually works?
Sure. Catholic Charities is one of the local resettlement agencies of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. There are about 67 Catholic Charities agencies involved in refugee resettlement, and there are 9 other national resettlement networks alongside USCCB. So the Department of State vets refugees overseas, selects them for resettlement to begin life anew in this great country. And then they bring them in, and the local resettlement agency's work begins when they arrive at the airport. And so the program, there are several different programs under the umbrella of Refugee Assistance Program, but the initial one is reception and placement, just what you might think. You receive them at the airport, and then you place them into housing, school, get their ID cards, and get them into employment, ideally.
And Patrick, as you know, there was this misleading question in the White House press room this week, insinuating that Catholic Charities, they help to bring illegal immigrants into the United States. Where do you think that misunderstanding comes from? I know that you've said it's important for everyone to understand that there's a difference between refugees and immigrants.
Right, and this is a common question, and it's all over the country, so I'm not surprised that a reporter might get this wrong. Every refugee is an immigrant. 99% of all immigrants are not refugees. Refugees are pre-screened and vetted that are fleeing persecution on any of a number of protected areas and claims, so race, gender, political persecution, etc., that are being persecuted and brought in. Many times they've lived in a refugee camp for 10, 12, 13, 14 years before they are selected for resettlement. So the government's done a very thorough job of vetting 3D holographic image scans on documents, retinal scans, fingerprints, all that other kind of stuff, all done. Every 3-letter agency of the federal government that wants to know who's coming in can figure all that stuff out. And then they're brought in, and again, local agencies have no control over that. We only work with our state offices and identify how many we think we can support and absorb into the community so that they can launch and thrive and contribute to a thriving local community.
And we know, of course, immigration and deportation, they're among some of the most divisive topics in the United States right now. What are your thoughts about the rising criticism Catholic bishops and Catholic Charities have faced this past week? And of course, that criticism, it might only intensify in the future.
So obviously criticism stings, but the church and the gospel call us to presume goodwill on the part of the other. And so as they share their concerns about what's going on with immigration, the church is very concerned about immigration. We are always in favor of vulnerable persons on the move, but the church is not in favor of illegality. The church indeed has argued for decades to Congress that we ought to remedy our immigration system that has consistently eluded progress by whatever administration, Democrat or Republican. Now, the Catholic Church, we're trusted, neutral, and Catholic. So by definition, we aren't pro-candidate. So we're not pro-Trump or anti-Trump, pro-Biden or anti-Biden. We are trusted, neutral, Catholic. We will argue policy all the time, but our approach is to be present to those that come our way. So we are pro the individual that finds their way to Catholic Charities.
And Patrick, from that Catholic perspective, how do you strike that balance? Because we know there is huge concern in the public over national security and what is described as Americans' open borders. But as a Catholic leader helping refugees, what is your view on border security, and how does that fit then with the Catholic Church's teaching of welcoming the stranger, for example?
Yes, sir. So my background, I did 22 years in the U.S. Air Force. I actually flew missions guarding the border for many, many years. So I actually probably know more about border security than most of the people criticizing what's going on. there's a lot of challenges on the southern border. And the fact that we have, as a nation, neglected to address it in a comprehensive fashion, and I'm not saying comprehensive immigration reform, in a rational fashion, contributes. I say that we should welcome those fleeing lawlessness and violence into this country, but we should do so in a way that doesn't extend the reach of lawlessness and violence into this country. Because we have not improved our immigration system, we are in fact empowering the coyotes and the traffickers and all of those other type of things. The people that are coming across the border are subject to illegality on the south of our border and north of our border because we haven't improved our immigration system. But as a retired Air Force colonel, I am not interested in introducing threat or harm into our communities. The refugees are fully vetted. We are in close contact with the FBI office in the state, our state, federal, and local law enforcement. They are fleeing violence, not importing it, and you can always find an exception to those things. But as a practice, and then if you look at the southern border, and I don't speak for the southern border, every agency is local, and every agency works under the auspices of their local ordinary, their bishop or archbishop, in the territory of the diocese and so forth. So I don't do any work. My agency doesn't do any work on the southern border. But it is inconceivable to me that the border communities are actually in greater harm because of Catholic Charities agencies helping in those communities, because the federal government already had contact with all those individuals and released them into the communities. Patrick, so can you imagine what those communities would look like if they didn't have a Catholic Charities agency to grab, shelter, shower, feed, and help send on their way? They'd be going through garbage cans or sleeping in garages or in your backyard or whatever. So clearly, Catholic Charities agencies are not causing the problem. They are only responding to it.
Well, Patrick, we know it's not easy work that you do, and you've been doing it for a long time there in Oklahoma. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you, sir.